Welcome to Shinoken's World. Today, I would like to welcome Mr. Simon Parks. Simon grew up in a family that had a link to British and American intelligence. Simon's mother worked for MI5. However, while MI5, she was managed in reality working for NSA. Simon's grandfather was employed by a secret intelligence service, better known as MI6. In reality, he was reporting to CIA. Simon went on to establish Connecting Consciousness, a free-to-join organization dedicated to raising people's awareness within a spiritual context. Today, the organization operates in many countries and thousands of members. Simon is known as UFO intelligent whistleblower, disclosing non-human experience. Simon, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Ken. Lovely to have the chance to talk to you. We were chatting just before we went live, and I'd said that I've been following you for some time, seen some of the interviews that you've done, and I was very impressed with that. So I'm delighted to have the chance to talk to you.
Thank you. It is a really honor to speak with you today. And I really like to thank to Carol, who arranged this interview for me. And she made my dream come true. Because when I started my YouTube channel, I started translating your information to Japanese people. And I started from very small apartment, watching your video every night when this January 6th occurred. And I was so encouraged with your intel information. And now, 4 years later, Mr. Trump become a president, and the world is changing so fast. Today, I would like to ask you, what's going on with the world?
Well, thank you for translating from English, British English, I hasten to add, not American English, through into Japanese. Thank you. This is what we call this vacuum period, the time when President Trump was elected but not yet inaugurated, which will be the 20th of January. And so I think that's quite a crazy time, because a lot of doors have got to be closed. We've seen the situation with Syria, with Assad. There are other things that are yet to happen in the next few weeks. But if we look at the 20th of January as the final moment, I think what the White Hats are trying to do, Ken, is literally get everything out the way, because they don't want Trump coming back, having to deal with all this nonsense. They want to try and get that all out. So what's happening in the world? Deals are being finished off, things are being done, but the worst is over. There'll still be a few bumps on the road, but the worst is over.
Thank you. And I think you always mention that the biggest challenge is that we don't have enough people to awaken yet. But your group, the CC, is growing so fast and helping humanity. And I believe that this community will become very strong in the future. So, Simon, my biggest question is, since Mr. Trump is going back to office, are we ready for changes? Do we still need the time for people to wake?
Well, that's a really good question. The commentators over the last 3 to 4 years, in many cases, got it wrong. They were saying that millions of people had woken up in America, the majority had woken up, etc., etc. Well, that wasn't the truth, and it's not the truth. We still are in a minority in terms of people who, not just being spiritual, but see the reality, understand the lies that are played out. And I don't know, it's like a bus waiting or a train. How long do you keep it at the stand? How long should it wait before the light goes green and the bus or the train goes? And who will we leave behind? So I think that we've got a few more months left of truth to play out. But at some point, the Earth will need to evolve. It'll need to move up from this dimension to the fifth. And basically, not everyone is ready for that transition. I guess it's choice, and I can't answer exactly on that, but whoever we get through to the other side, is a win. It's a win, and I've never really felt that we would ever get 100% through to the other side.
Okay, thank you so much. In Japan, there's a lot of rumor in 2025, like a big comet is coming to the Earth and we will have a panic. And I recently spoke with David Hughes and Mark Steele and David Icke about the threat of a 5G EMF
Mhm.
exposure. What do you think about this, 5G EMF situation?
All right. Well, the comment thing, um, an awful lot of people on social media were shocked when the transition at the election for Trump was smooth. There wasn't anything that took them, that they were expecting, and so a lot of people now are looking for other disasters, other emergencies, because that didn't happen. So they want to. A lot of people are stuck in that, Ken. That, oh, there'll be this, there'll be that. I mean, there are some people who, I won't mention names because that's not point, but saying that even before President Trump is inaugurated, this will happen and that will happen. And I've never followed that line because that's not the information that I was receiving. In terms of the comet, there is a body that will pass, but it won't hit the Earth. It won't pass through the Earth's atmosphere, but like Halley's comet, it's a portent for change. So there will be things happening, but we shouldn't always imagine that it's going to be the end of us. In terms of in terms of 5G, I've always maintained that it was a frequency that I did not like, that it posed, I believe, health problems for humanity, not in the same way that the other 3 and 4. I wouldn't say they were particularly good for you, but not in the same way. So personally, I would like to see us go up to a higher G. Now that's maybe a bit confusing to people, but the 6, 7, 8, 9 generation of that doesn't affect the human body in the same way that 5G does.
Wow.
Um, and the technology is there. It's just that would all the cell towers, have they all been pre-rigged for this? So that at some point will they be able to jump straight from 5 into 6 or 7? So I have always been concerned with that. I know Mark Steele. I've met Mark Steele. I've spoken to him. He's a very knowledgeable guy. And yes, to my opinion, 5G is something that I would much rather that we moved away from.
Wow. So we can expect the 6, 7, 8, 9 will be good frequency. Do you think that will be related to quantum computing system, QFS?
Uh, no, because quantum computing system runs at the speed of light.
Okay.
But I think it will be an effect of moving to an environment that is more secure,
Mm.
and a lot of people no longer control or will control all of these aspects of technology. It'll fall to a smaller group. And I just think that multinationals, corporations, governments will be empowered to move out of that concept that 5G is brilliant. Just like, you buy a television and then 3 years later a new version arrives. And I think it's no different from that. The question is whether all the cell towers have been pre-wired for this. Are they ready for it? Because if they are, it's relatively simple. If they're not, then I can see a kickback from the industry because of the huge cost involved. However, that's more of a political decision, and that's the sort of thing that will occur. You know, President-elect Trump is already saying that when he takes office, he will ban fluoride from all the drinking water in the United States. Now, the pressure that puts on other governments is incredible, because people will say, hold on a minute, why is America banning it, but say Britain isn't or France isn't? And through the power of that effect, those countries will, after a while, also ban it. So where America leads, other countries follow. And the same with the 5G. So if they move very quickly in America to a higher frequency, which is less damaging, in my opinion, to people, then other governments will be pressured to do so.
I see. Thank you so much. I need to ask you about what do you think about Elon Musk? I know he's a strong supporter for Mr. Trump, and he's in charge of Doge. We are hoping him to change like he changed on Twitter. However, he's saying that he will install the microchip to the brain. That would really be fear to us. What do you think
Yeah.
about his strategy?
Yeah. When President-elect Trump started to choose the team around the mainstream media did not understand that some of those choices he had no intention, and they had no intention of actually doing the job. Somebody leaked the term, but they shouldn't have done, but they leaked the term disruptors. What Trump was doing was saying something, putting people into a panic in the bad houses, and this is the same thing. So Elon Musk, who is a good guy, that's why he's in charge of all the Starlink system. That's why he was empowered to buy what is called X now, and he'll purchase other social media platforms as the years go on. But in effect, he will make statements just as Donald Trump makes statements, which is designed not to upset the people who are watching from our aspect, but has a much wider effect on people higher up. So there's a war taking place, which is a war of words, and people who in the social media side shouldn't imagine that everything that is said is meant for them. Most of it isn't. Most of it is meant for other people. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much. Talking about the war, Japan's most concern is the Taiwan situation. If China invade Taiwan, then Japan will be in trouble and become a Uyghur, Tibet situation. So may I ask what's your future prediction about Taiwan?
Yeah, no war. Once President Trump takes over, it'll be a rerun of his first presidency. There wasn't a single war between 2016 and 20. Trump inherited the war from Afghanistan, but there was no fresh wars. I think at some point, Taiwan and China will have to sit round a table to have some serious discussions, but at no point will Chinese troops ever invade Taiwan, because Taiwan is too long in the Western area now. It's too long. It's not like it's only been in a couple of years. It's too long. Now, what might happen is some form of political arrangement whereby China can basically open banks in Taiwan and like in Hong Kong and make money. So in other words, I don't have any problem, and neither with the Taiwan government or the people, if China actually was part of Taiwan but had no say in the running of the country. That's where I think we're going with it. So I personally have an issue. If there was going to be an issue, it will happen, would have happened when President Biden was in charge.
Right.
Now, I know we've got 4 weeks left, but I can't see anything bad happening like that. So, no, I don't have any concern for that at all.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel relief now. And
Okay.
I know that you signed the NDA with White Hat, so you can't talk about the detail about the QFS. People in Japan are always hoping and ask for when the medbed is coming, when the QFS happen.
Right.
Could you tell us, you cannot talk a detail, but can you tell us like a little bit about the situation concept?
Of course. Well, every country that understands that the medbeds are real, that's one of their top questions, because either people are ill or they know somebody in the family who are ill, and it's natural because the official medicine in many cases hasn't been able to heal or cure people. The thing is with the medbeds, it's a hidden technology. It's not even admitted to. the mainstream don't even talk about it. They don't believe in it, and it's something that a regular hospital or a regular doctor wouldn't even want to talk about. So it's staying in the arm of the military. What will happen is that over the coming year, that's 2025, a number of med beds will appear. I say appear. They'll be installed in key locations, but at the beginning, it'll be quite small numbers. There are a number of commentators who talk about the RV, and then they start also talking about med beds, and I haven't been able to agree with any of them, because the information that they've been giving the public is not the information that I have been receiving. So my understanding is that the med beds will be released in small numbers, and it will be by invitation only. So nobody's going to turn up, in my opinion, no one's going to turn up at the bank with a load of currency money and ask for change and then say, I want to go on a med bed. What will happen is individuals will receive a communication telling them to be at a certain location at a certain time, and they will then be processed through the medbed system. Now, as we go through, more and more med beds will be made, and so it will change. But the population, there are billions, millions and millions and millions of people, and millions of people need a med bed. And there just aren't that number. There aren't that number. And the second thing, which people don't care about, but if you're in business, you do need to care about, is that if you were to put all these med beds out, it would crash the pharmaceutical industry, which would crash a large part of the stock exchange, which would put hundreds of thousands of people unemployed and cause great disaster. So it's all very well for people at home who care about, themselves, or hopefully more their family or their friends. But the people who are really in charge, their concern is for the whole of their country or the whole continent or the whole world. They're not going to make a decision which would give them an economic headache. If you're a bad guy, it might be good to crash something like 1929, the stock market crash in America, because a lot of big, powerful people can make money out of it. But this would be a specific crash in the pharmaceutical industry, which is going to destroy pensions. So, look, med beds are real, but they're in very small numbers. Well, the release will be very small. So prior to that, there will be a release of more newer technologies, which aren't as good as a med bed, but they are all on frequency healing. Your listeners know about Tesla, and there are other people who understood the benefits of frequency or sound healing. It's an energy form, and there will be more and more push, not from the mainstream. The mainstream won't be doing it because they can't sell pills in bottles, but there will be other organizations that, and it won't be free, they'll have to charge for it because it's not been officially sanctioned yet, but there will be a number of devices which help frequency wise, and they have been on the market, the alternative market, the anti-5G, other healing devices. Tesla was right. That's why Tesla was squashed, because he was right. So I think to pick up the gap before med beds come in, there'll be a whole range of frequency healing modalities that will be available.
Okay, thank you so much. So what is the purpose of a vaccination? I know this, big pharma, they want to vaccinate people, and some people say that they will be controlled with 5G, and the zombie will be starting very soon. What do you think about this project?
I think pharmaceuticals want vaccinations because they make money. They are a business after all. So their whole concept is to come up with a drug and get it proved by governments around the world. And then, doctors are able to officially prescribe that, and of course the pharmaceutical money gets money. Even in a country like Great Britain, the individual doesn't pay for that, but the government pays on their behalf. In a country like America, maybe Japan, the individual pays themselves. But either way, the pharmaceutical gets the money in. There were talks of 5G, and I think David Icke actually was a great proponent of this some years ago. 5G activating with nano chips inside. I really can't see that happening during Trump's time. Again, any of this would be much more likely to occur when Trump was officially out of office. I think as Trump said only a week ago, he wants to concentrate on the future. He said America, and obviously the world, needs healing. So I would say that the next 4 years are really like a locomotive on full power, trying to catch up and try and put right all the things that have gone wrong. Well, I don't think we can put them all right, but I think Trump can have a damn good try at it. So no, I'm more focusing on the exciting news. I'm excited about how the RV will change every country, whether it's Africa or Japan or the United States, how that will help, how Trump will be an enabler to ensure that these monies that are released are used wisely and not, squandered by corruption. So no, the next 4 years, we've had 4 years of very difficult, terrible times. Now it's time to have 4 years of really good times. So I'm not going to go into the doom and gloom side. I've had enough of that. I'm looking forward to the future.
Me too. Thank you so much. And talk about the RB. So when I talked to Charlie Ward, he mentioned that like one yen become like $50. The rate will be changed. So what's the relationship between RB and the Nesera Gesera?
Well, it was President Trump when he was quite young, actually, before he was president, and he was interviewed. I don't know if it was Time magazine, but he's done a number of interviews when he was younger. And he'd obviously been talking to some professor expert on currency, because Trump was saying that it didn't seem right to him that different countries had different rates, which allowed countries to, either do well or do badly. So if you compare, for instance, the United States with Great Britain, the American dollar is technically weaker than the Great British pound. But being a reserve currency, you can go to almost any country in the world and they'll take US dollars. So what's happened is that while America had oil backing it, it was able to inflate its value. Now, what we're moving to will be asset backing. Now, it is interesting because a lot of people perhaps misunderstand the true nature of what's occurring, because Iraq will asset value against its oil, which seems odd because America's asset backed against oil. But here we are talking about Iraq doing that. But it's about resources. So America will definitely have a gold-backed dollar, no question. In terms of other currencies, and we only have to look at what happened a few years ago with Kuwait. Kuwait revalued overnight, and it had a stronger currency than the United States dollar. So other countries can do the revaluation. About, 7, 8 years ago, maybe more now, President Modi, Prime Minister Modi of India, he removed the 50,000 rupee and turned the economy in India over very, very quickly in just 1 or 2 days. So you can do this. Why is it a part of the Sarajasara? Because it's about balancing a country's political and economic position with another country. If you've got a country that takes 4,000, say, dinar to buy one United States dollar, how can that country ever sit around a table and be taken seriously? It can't be. There was a very derogatory term for South American countries called banana republics. And a banana republic, in the old saying, was a republic in South America
I
whose
see.
money was useless. And every other week there was a revolution and there was a new prime minister. So
Mm.
what Trump is saying is we've got to get to a stable world, not just a stable country or continent, stable world. So part of the revaluation of currencies
Mhm.
uh, is the first stage in putting right a wrong. Look at Zimbabwe, old Rhodesia. Look at many African countries that were robbed, particularly by Britain, but not exclusively by Britain. The French and others have a price to pay here.
Mhm.
But how do we ensure that those countries, A, have enough resources to look after their own people, and B, how do we ensure that those resources actually do go to the people and not just to a few fat cats? So it's not just a financial change. Most people just stop at that. My view is a political change
Mm.
on top of that to drive through the financial changes.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And talking about this, the technology. So your
Mm.
mother was involved with the alien technology of research. And are we like moving to discover like Atlantic, this kind of old, high technology in near future?
Um, sure. Over the next 4 years, certain technologies will be released to the commercial world, um, or at least the commercial world who've had them for a long time will be allowed to release them for products
Mm.
for the consumer. Going right back to 1947, the United States military has always sought to reward its friends in the business world. After all, look at companies like Lockheed Martin,
Mhm.
who are private companies, and they exist because they have contracts with the United States military.
Mm.
So there are an awful lot of contractors and universities, MIT, for instance, who can be trusted with certain what I call exotic technologies. They then work them up to get back to the military, but at some point there's a payoff for them, so they can make a product which they copyright, they patent, they sell off, and they get a percentage. And it's worked very well because technologies have got into the marketplace. Where it's failed is the time lag, and also anything that would threaten the status quo has not been allowed to go through. So, for instance, sound healing technologies that would threaten the status quo. They're not going to let that go. The mainstream news talks about missiles. So we hear, how fast a missile would go, this, that, and the other. And of course, both the Chinese, the Americans, and the Russians
Mhm.
have energy weapons capable of destroying not just missiles, but intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's why nuclear war is finished. No, well, in the sense that there's not a single what we call delivery vehicle. There isn't a single rocket now that could make it through. And even where they have multi-independently targeted re-entry vehicles, which is one rocket with 5 or 6 separate heads, the weapons now exist to be able to knock them all out in space. So, but the public aren't told that because, if you were to say nuclear war is no more, um, it's a loss of control over the public, which shows that people in power still want to control the public. If you are confident, then you don't need to control the public. But these people aren't confident. They are frightened of the public. Look at China. How many people are there who in 12 hours could wipe away the whole of the Communist Party if they so chose? That's why you have face recognition software in China more than any other part of the world. That's why the Chinese government through the CCP have control of everyone's bank account if they want to, because they are fearful of so many people. And this is part of an education process for leaders. never mind the public. So it's all part of what's going to happen in. I mean, it's not just 4 years, 4 years of Trump in office, but we may have 100 years of change on this planet before, or at least the next generation of kids growing up, before people can say, those history books are wrong. We need to rewrite these history books. That's the final stage. When they rewrite history books, you've won.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait for the real history to be discovered. And
Sure.
talking about this, 1940s age, there was a Roswell incident occur in the United States. Some people say that the crash was intentionally happened by alien to giving like technology to the human being. What's your thought on that incident?
Well, I'm one of those people that put that view forward. I don't believe there was just one crash. There was at least two, possibly three.
Oh.
The rules that many races play by are that you cannot give technology that is more advanced than the community has already. So it's a Star Trek. It's a prime directive, wasn't it? That you can't involve yourself. Now, but we have free will. So when this technology was gifted, it couldn't be exchanged, not because the beings felt morally bound, but because they thought it would bring them into a war with other alien beings who would say, that's a red line crossed, you can't do that. So if you want to diplomatically move without causing a problem, you engineer a crash onto a planet, and humans, in their terms, are very clever monkeys. They're very clever apes. They're clever. You give a human something, and it will naturally pick it up in its hands and do all this with it. And ultimately, it'll do something with it. So they knew that if they dropped enough technology and it wasn't destroyed, it was damaged but not destroyed, humans would make something of it. And they've gifted it. They gifted it to Adolf Hitler, and they in 1933 they gifted it to America in 1941, and other crashes are not gifted because as the clever monkeys on the planet, the clever humans started to back engineer, we now have the capability to bring down many of their ships, and we have done. And so the amount of information or knowledge that we've gained now puts the elite on this planet many, many years ahead of where they should have been. So it's not just about the nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb doesn't matter. It's pointless. It's just nothing. It's just something to scare people with. The real reality is the ability to go to other worlds, to do some fantastic things which you only see on Star Trek. But, the elite don't think that the general public are ready to be told the truth yet.
I totally agree. And now I think we are at the end of like material ages, and now we are shifting to spiritual ages. I'm recently reading Madame Blavatsky's book and Aristides' book. They always say that, in the book, they say that from 2025, there will be big changes in our spiritual mind. And your grandfather was involved with the black magic, and your mother was involved in white magic. So what do you thought about this, magic and spirituality?
Well, you see, people who, I don't mean to be rude, but I say ordinary people, that are seen so rude and derogatory. The majority of people use the word magic, but those that use it don't call it magic, it's science. Magic is science at another level. But it was used the word magic because particularly in Britain and France and Germany in the Middle Ages, where the Catholic Church or the Christian Church was very strong, there was seen as this great divide between the church and witchcraft or black magic. But all of the ruling kings and queens in Europe and in other countries in Asia had people to advise them. So Queen Elizabeth I had a guy who would look into very polished metal or polished mirrors, and he would try and foretell the future. And he would just sign his name. You know, he was X007. That's where the James Bond 007 comes from. And Chinese leaders always have someone to talk to them about the stars and when is a good time to do this. So what's funny is that the general public are told, oh, don't worry with it. It's just nonsense. It's silly. It's all. But the leaders are taking it incredibly seriously. Most, not all, most leaders won't jump on an aeroplane or have a meeting unless their guide has said to them that looks like a good date. So let's first of all paint that picture. In terms of secret societies in the English speaking world, never mind in Asia, they see themselves as the guardians of this occult knowledge, whether it's white knowledge or black knowledge, doesn't matter. These secret societies believe that they are entrusted with controlling and managing materials and knowledge that is, as they think, beyond the scope of the ordinary public. And so we have a very two-tier system right across the, where the elite have access to a whole range of things, and then the don't. And it's about money in some ways making the difference, but it's also about bloodlines. It's about your heritage. And if you have reincarnated on this planet many times, who were you? What are you? What soul is inside that body now? So these are all these aspects which move a person into a different direction from somebody who has consistently incarnated on this earth, but has accepted the mainstream news, regardless of how many hundreds of years ago it was. 2025 will be the first full year that we will have a new movement and a changeover in the leadership of the world. Now, please, people who are listening, don't expect, you know, on day one, everything to change. It's not going to. It's going to take a long time, because if we've learned nothing else, we've seen over these 4 years that only, sadly, a small proportion of people actually move forward. Not the great vast numbers that we'd hoped for, but there was still movement. It was still positive, but it's going to take time. So 2025 will be the beginning of changes that will be beneficial, but maybe it will be our children who will actually reap the benefit of that, because it will take that time to work through. So I agree, 2025 is a new beginning.
Yeah, I really can't wait for 2025. And Connecting Consciousness group is a spiritual development that was created by you and your lovely wife, Becky. And it is worldwide sharing, networking group. And what kind of, project are you working for this in this Connecting Consciousness group?
Well, yeah, we've been going 10 years now. And as you said, Ken, thank you. It's free to join. And all the elites can't understand that, because the number of people who've come to me and said, well, you could be a millionaire. And people have come to me and said, I can make you a millionaire. I can show you how to do it. You've got 125,000 members worldwide. And I've said, no, that's not what I've done this for. People don't pay an entrance fee, because then I'm connecting money with what we do. So, we get donations, or I'll promote product, which I think is good, a lot of sound healing stuff that the white hats have sent to me through an individual who's, say, a scientist that they've worked with, and they have these products that mainstream medicine won't touch, but that person has been brought to me. Would you, Simon, please promote this person, because this is the sort of thing we're going to be doing in the future. So we've done that. And we don't charge. There's no hidden costs. And yet I personally have to pay thousands of dollars a year, because we have our own platform, which is called Mighty Networks. That's not free. that I'm going to pay for that are the email servers. You know, there are hundreds of thousands of emails. You've got 120,000 members, and you got, yeah, as Becky's just shouting from the kitchen there are millions of emails a year. It's 100,000 a month, but millions of emails a year, and we pay for that. I pay for them, and I do it because, you know, I think that's the right thing to do. But of course, that doesn't match the program. The program, of course, for everybody is you charge people and you make money. And that's what makes it different. That's why I've stood out. That's why the white hats perhaps have liked this approach, because it's very different. Now, projects, we're not just aiming at, there's the CC project, there's a project review I have for my organization as a whole, but then those members who are in my organization and they've done their own project, what will happen there, Ken, is that I'm getting close to the NDA now. What will happen is certain countries will be activated. It's not going to happen right across the earth at the same moment. So, for instance, let's say Japan. Okay. Let's talk about Japan. So, Japan, I will get an email saying Japan is activated. So, I will look and see how many members I've got in Japan. Okay. I will then look what projects we've got. Those that are ridiculous, I'll throw out. But those that are half decent or look like they can work, I'll send those on. Someone else will, outside of my organization, will look at people who have the money. They'll say which ones they want. And then those individuals would then have to sign an NDA, and their project would be funded. So they would be the spiritual head of their organization. They wouldn't be expected to be an accountant or an architect. Others will do that. But what my organization will do is provide an individual who has a spiritual cleanliness to run a project without being corrupted. And Connecting Consciousness will have a role as a sort of we will drop in on these projects and see how they're doing. And, you know, we won't be responsible for the money side of it, but we will be responsible for the spiritual side of it. And obviously, if we have a problem, then, you know, I know who to phone. So all I would say is there are a lot of people, Ken, who are telling their audience that at some point this year, they'll be able to go to what they call a redemption center. Okay. And they will be able to get millions and millions, sometimes billions of dollars. If that was true, I wouldn't need to be running any projects. I could retire, because I would say, look, it's okay. You're all going to get billions of dollars. You can all set your projects up. And see, that's not going to happen. You know, what happens in the real world, and I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful, but in the real world, the people who are in charge, good and bad, but the people in charge only work with people that they trust. And it is ludicrous, and frankly, it's wrong to suggest that somebody could go in and get $1 billion and then sign an NDA when they come out. Nobody is going to give anyone that sort of money, because they can't control it. It doesn't matter whether you're a white hat or a black hat. It's about control. It's controlling your country. It's controlling it, making sure that it works and it goes the right way. Now, through this organization, Connecting Consciousness, I've got all these NDAs. So they know who they're dealing with. But even so, when I put people forward, they're still going to do an NDA with that individual. They're still going to have an eye on them. But they would at least have come through a spiritual organization with a track record that hasn't turned against them and hasn't been corrupted. So this is how they'll work. They'll work through church groups, be a lot of that. They'll work through non-profits. But here's the shock for many, many people. They will also work through banks. They'll also work through construction companies, because I can't build a bridge across a 0.5 kilometer of land in Africa. But somebody who has 20 diggers and 500 men, they can. So they are going to have to provide the infrastructure delivery. Organizations like mine will be much more in the healing, the health, the good food, the clear water, education side. But the mainstream are going to have to deliver billions of dollars worth of physical infrastructure because organizations like ours can't. So we've all got to work together. And the fact of the matter is that the bad boys at the top of these organizations have been removed. So a company might have a bad name in social media, but the guys at the top now are different. So there's a lot of people to catch up on. You know, people who are still listening to certain people doing podcasts twice a week, or you know, that their mindset is outdated. It's not how it is. And we in our organization will play our role, whatever that is, in trying to help humanity, trying to deliver something, and be proud and excited that we actually brought change in our lifetime. I mean, you know, some pharaoh supposedly built a pyramid, and you know that was his icon for the world. Well, I can't think of anything worse than say, what did you do for your people? Well, I built them that pyramid. Did it feed them? No. Did it give them fresh water? No. Did it educate them? No. What did it do? Well, it was big. So this is the change. This is why we need spirituality, to let go of the ego and actually say, not what do I want? What do we need on the ground? You know, African people, Indian people, people in Asia, no school, no education, no food, no decent water, no shoes on their feet. Yeah. So let's not think about pyramids. Let's think about how we're going to help those people. And that's really, to goodness, where we should be aiming ourselves. And there are people in America, for goodness sake, that are desperate. We tend to forget all this. There are communities in America that need help. Farming, small villages. There are villages, small towns in America. People forget all this. So you can't just imagine it's Africa or India. It's the whole world. I don't really care where we get going as long as we get going.
Yeah, thank you so much. And during this 4 year, we are divided into two groups mainly. Who is aiming for the spirituality, and who is aiming for like their own ego, material only. But the
Yes.
spiritual people, they are broke. They don't have a money. I think
Quite right.
that's a big challenge. And I think
Absolutely.
and your existence is really, hope for these spiritual people in Japan.
Right.
And I watched your video and your Marks and Spencer story, and really touched me because
it's true, isn't it?
I didn't know that
Yeah.
the big clothing company started from selling a vegetable in a street
Yeah.
and $100, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But you could in those days. You couldn't now, because the elite say you're not agreed. You didn't go to the right school, or you didn't do this. So back then you could do that. I think the thing is that we have an opportunity now. We really do. And if we can work as a team, we can actually bring that change about. Ken, what were you saying at the beginning before the Marks and Spencer bit? There was you sort of part of your question at the beginning.
Oh,
You
yes.
you just before the Marks and Spencer bit, you said something about spirituality
Versus like a
the
material,
yeah
ego
yeah the
people. And
service to self.
I believe
Yeah.
QFS is the system that will select only good people to be financed.
Right.
Is that true?
Uh, I can't go down that because I
Okay.
just generally don't know. What I would say is, if you've got a world leader,
Mhm.
let us say, and you're in a meeting with him or her, and they're not particularly good. Now, how we value good,
Right.
that's a whole day's argument, but they're not particularly good. But if you say to them, I've got 50 billion worth of projects which I can bring to your country and completely lift your country out of the medieval times it's in. And you can claim it for yourself.
Mhm.
But here's my 10-point action plan. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to change that. So rather than threaten people at a point of a gun like they had to do with President Clinton to sign the damn thing in the first place, you actually say to people, work with us or work against us. And my view is that everyone's politician's a politician, because I was a politician many years ago. You didn't mention that, but just for the audience who don't know, I was an elected politician. Elected politicians are really only concerned about one thing, and that is jobs, work, because they know the more people that work, the more people pay tax, and that's another thing to talk about later. But the reality is that if you have the wrong vibration, if you are service to self, you wouldn't want to do anything to help people. So it will be naturally selective. So for people who just want to make money for themselves, they won't get involved in these projects because, yeah, we're going to pay wages to people who run projects, but it'll be monitored and be controlled, and they won't be able to do anything bad with it. So I think the system around money will change, and therefore the opportunities will change. And finally, the point that I was wanting you to come back onto, but I'll just come back for you, is that the people who are poor, relatively speaking, now have no money, are the spiritual people, because they're not part of the system. If you're part of the system has rewarded you, and you can't turn against the system because it created you and it has supported you. And you don't want to bring the system down because, hell, that's your life. But those of us who are not part or have walked away, we are relatively poor because the system is not rewarding us. But we've kept ourselves pure, or we should have done. We have a clear vision. And therefore, when we are empowered, we are then not tainted with all these different, we can just go straight in, deliver what we're supposed to do, and then come out and go on to the next task. So good people are poor for a reason. And hopefully, Ken, that time's coming to an end. Okay.
Thank you. Your information, your word is very strong, powerful, and really encourage us. And I strongly believe, your intel will be encouraging Japanese audience too. Could you give advice to the Japanese audience who is waiting for the new golden ages?
I think the first thing is not to be concerned about China. That's really is a terrible thing because it's been drawing people away. There are good people in China who can trace their lineage right back to the emperor, right back in time, beyond the terrible Second World War, beyond all that. And if you think about the samurai, and you think about the code of conduct, and you think about Asian people generally, we cannot value them in the same way we would a Western person. So therefore, they have to have their own independence. They want to trade with the West, but politically, they really should be left alone and supported individually. Now, a small country like Japan that went through a terrible Fukushima and lost its export capability. Right? Many Westerns don't understand that the export capability in Japan was destroyed when that occurred. The damage to the psyche and to government is very worrying because they are always worried that something could happen. I think that I would say in the next few years, if only Chinese people can go back to their roots, go back to their forefathers and be brave. There's my key word, be brave and go out and be successful. And remember, you can be spiritual and make money. Nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is if you use money for bad purposes. Okay? Because if you didn't have spiritual people making money, they wouldn't give to charities. I'm talking about good charities because bad people don't give money to charities, but good people do. So got to go out and make money, but use it for good purposes. And if you live in fear, you can't be yourself. So what I ask the Chinese people to do is to go back to their forefathers, to the belief that they had, and to go out and be proud and not be frightened. Yes, be respectful, but also be brave. And that's, I think, has been lost from a lot of Chinese people. So China's no different from any other country, except that the culture is much stronger and is longer, and hasn't been destroyed in the same way as in the Western world. So I think I'm waiting to see how much independence the Asian countries are going to get. Well, remember that the vast majority of the gold is in Asia. It's not so much in Japan, but it's in Asia. A lot of powerful people there. I hope they do good for all of their area, not just their own individual countries.
Simon, you are my hero. Thank you so much.
Very kind.
Really honored to speak with you today. And how can we follow you? Especially people who's interested with CC. How do they can start joining?
Okay. Well, I used to be on YouTube, but they banned me because I used to speak about President Trump, and they really didn't like that. I'm hoping to come back onto YouTube when Trump gets back, but that's a minor thing. Well, if you go to my website, which is simonparkes.org, simonparkes.org, there's a section there for you to sign up, and it's free. And then there's a process. You sign up, someone will write to you, and you'll be put into electronically, as they say, into the country that you're in, and you'll have a coordinator who should welcome you. You can join real meetings, physical meetup meetings. You can have electronic meetings. Becky does her spiritual topics on a monthly basis, and then the groups meet all over the world online to discuss those, how it affects them, how it affects others. This is more than a support group. It started that way, but it's much more than that. I really want people to join for the right reasons, which is not because they want big ego and they want a spotlight on them, but because they actually think this is my chance to help and do something positive. Like I said, the old guy who looked at the pyramid, what did you do to help your people? No matter who we are, what we are, we can always do something. So go to the website, sign up, and the only other thing I would say, because you won't know about it yet, is we're just starting our own experience website, which is our platform, which means that somebody who's had any sort of experience, whether it's a ghost or a terrible thing when they were a child with the secret societies, or whether it's the traditional UFO, they can join. We're going to take it in small groups, and then they can go on the support platform. I'm actually going to be on there as well as a moderator. And that really came, Ken, because I, many years ago, I was on MUFON as a person, and, I was on there for a while. And I saw what they did, and they were actually pretty damn good. I've been on some others, and they're pretty awful. The MUFON one was a better lot. But I thought, we can do this. We've got all these people, 125,000, many of them with many of these experiences. These need to be shared, and those individuals need to be supported. So that they're not mad. What they saw was real. What they experienced was real, and so we're getting that up and running. So that's another aspect of how we're trying to appeal to people that don't fit in the box of the mainstream.
Okay, Simon, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And you also have a donation button on your website, right?
I think we do. Yeah, I think we do. And if anybody would like to donate, that's great, because that pays for the emails, it pays for the software. It just keeps us going, and that's great.
We would love to. Thank you so much. And Simon, my last question. I have two favors to ask you.
Go on.
One,
here we go.
One is, can you come back to my show again?
Yes. What I've always say to the guy doing the talking, which is you today, Ken, is if your audience writes to you and ask for me to come back, I will. If the audience were bored or they didn't think it was interesting, then I won't. So I want to respond to what the people want, because that's important. So if you get good feedback, it went well, they liked it, then I'd be delighted to come.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you so much. People love you so much, and you're very famous in Japan already. I definitely can get a sum up button from them. Thank you. And the second thing, my goal, my dream is to interview 100 truth seeker, actually fact seeker. I have so far achieved a 50 interview today. So do you have any like a person that you recommend that I should talk on my show in the future?
I will do. Once we get into 2025, and things are different because it's still up in the air, but I'll send you a list.
Okay.
And then you can work through the list. I'm serious. I'll send you a list and you can work through it.
Thank you, Simon. You are my
Pleasure.
hero and a dream, maker. Thank you so much.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that. It's very kind. I Before I retire, whenever that will be,
Okay.
I go on a med bed. I'll never be allowed to retire. But before I retire, if I have been able to make people's dreams a reality, in other words, they wanted to help children or they wanted to help old people or what have you, then I'll have done something good. So if I can make people's dreams true, and I'm not Father Christmas, then I will have done something that I can then say my dream came true because I indirectly empowered people to do good. Thank you, Ken. God bless you. God bless Japan.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Thank you.
Talk to you again. Thank you.
Thank you.